So this is a Unconference pop-up session about cannabis and crypto in Colorado. And so my motivation for proposing this session is that I live in Colorado. I was a journalist here and I actually covered in 2014 cannabis rolling out in small towns in Colorado. And it was really fascinating. You had, your 65-year-old city clerk like go into the dispensaries trying to fingerprint people. And I'm from Indiana. We gave you mic pens. This was like such, oh my God, they can like do this in public moment for me. So it very much was this kind of like mind shift, but also like, why not? Because what we saw with recreation legalization was this infusion to cities that were kind of dying in small towns, right? They have a 30% tax. Some goes to the state, but a lot goes local. And this saved so many towns, especially rolling into COVID. I lived down in Manitou Springs during COVID. Line was like a mile long to come to that dispensary because in Colorado Springs, rec wasn't legal. They come over there. That floated the whole town on sales tax and commerce for 2 years. And so cannabis is a municipal issue. It's in all these states, right, as either medical or recreational. And I think embracing the conversation around innovating how crypto can support cannabis in local communities is a conversation I wanted to convene here. And so I have 2 more minutes and then we're gonna just talk. I wanna set this up. So at this time, things are kind of converging to make this conversation quite relevant. So Trump said he is going to reschedule cannabis. We have stablecoins, and stablecoins can do a function, especially intrastate, which is like what cannabis is regulated per state, right? It's still federally illegal. The descheduling will help, but that doesn't mean it's like toke it up, right? there's still rules about these things. And then also, Colorado innovated this. Like I said, I covered this in 2014, and it was so interesting to see the culture and communities embrace this or not. Colorado is quite unique. We have home rule. So cities and towns can decide to have it or not. You're not mandated. Some people said no. And then a few years later, they were like, okay, come over. You know what I mean? I covered in the West Slope. They were a little like resistant, but eventually they got there, right? Because who's coming to shop on your little main street, right? It's just not happening. And so it is a revenue issue integral to Colorado's economy. But we also have a crypto innovation here. Denver has been here for 9 years. The Ethereum ecosystem has an ethos that is very aligned with cannabis. Outsider organization, people want to build, and unbanked and unaccepted. And so there's a lot of parallels here. And I think we are at the point where we can very much innovate, whether it be stablecoins for payment at even just the point of sale for consumers to save them that ATM fee or that 3% fee, versus the whole chain, which is like, I want to scan a barcode and see where my stuff was grown. And then if we have a health recall like we did in December, where over 300 dispensaries had pesticide infected cannabis, and we didn't find out till 9 months later after it was already in the market. Everybody done smoked that up and they just thought it was like really good weed. Yeah, too late. And they're not reporting their symptoms to the MED, are they? And so I think we're at this kind of perfect kind of like position to bring some solutions together that blockchain could do for payments, but also if we're really thinking about like the transparency of the supply chain, it's cheaper now, right? It's the cheapest it's ever been. And so I want to just convene some ideas around that because I'm a hometown girl and I want to see Colorado innovate in these spaces and stand out because it's not special having good weed anymore. What's that? So, well, both, right? We've seen the market go down, but also when we're talking about blockchain and crypto, the cost of gas fees has gone down. So it might have been $250 a couple years ago. Now it's 50 cents, right? And so the economics finally make sense for businesses to actually be using that. So other comments, like Patrick?
Does anyone here work in cannabis or have any familiarity with just, okay. My understanding is that in general, there are a lot of costs around cash management, being unbanked. Obviously, banks take fees as well, so it's not totally without its own costs to be part of the banking system. But there's a lot of manual compliance that has to be done without being hooked into the financial grid. Stablecoins do have the potential to, either on the B2B side, between operations and dispensaries, solve for payments, as well as consumers. If you think about, as January said, maybe you go in with your own cash taken out of the bank, but a lot of people do roll up with, oh, I forgot, I'm going to hit that ATM fee. And where does that money go? Not to the dispensary, unless they have some kind of revenue sharing agreement, typically not. It is literally just, there's $3 to $6 just sucked out of the community that doesn't benefit the business, doesn't benefit or the dispensary, the producer, the consumer in any way. And so with, stablecoin transfers fees being, a couple cents to sub-cents levels, that could really solve a major issue. Not to mention just kind of taking the instant auditability of stablecoin payments. Now everything is digital, and you can solve for privacy in other ways. There's lots of privacy solutions on chain now too. But yeah, I mean, I am innovating in stablecoins, and I think that it's likely that major stablecoin players like USDC and others will be the first to kind of fill in this void one way or another. At my 130 session, I'll plug, we can talk about local currencies and where that may fit into even compound local wealth and some of the small towns in particular January talked about. But yeah, that's been looking a lot about how, I mean, this is an unbanked industry, stablecoins, just Coinbase, Commerce, or similar has already shown a willingness to bank with stablecoins and crypto businesses that can't get bank accounts or struggle to do so. And it seems like a ripe opportunity for payments in stablecoins as well. I'm definitely also super interested in the supply chain issue. I don't know a lot about the recalled product thing, but my understanding is that this industry in general just has there's 4 or 5 competing ERP systems that are fragmented. You could even have those talk to each other.
Well, that's a good point. And this happens in every government system, is that the systems don't talk to each other. So if you have immutable data, a registry, something basic, right? Everyone can go off that source of truth and it can work in everybody's systems. Yeah. And so there is a seed to sale supervision in Colorado for cannabis businesses, but it's not transparent, right? And so I think elevating this conversation, part of the point is that I don't want government to fix this. I want the cannabis industry to like it and adopt it, right? So you have cannabis brands where you get, a discount if you're a member, right? If you always go to that dispensary. What if your consumer, part of your membership or the benefits of joining was that I can scan my bag or whatever you're smoking and see where it's been. You know what I mean? Talk about brand loyalty. Talk about wanting to understand the cycle of product. What do they put in there? Are they an outdoor grow? Every brand and grower has how they do their things. I think people are quite interested in having that. It's like farm to table organics, but it hasn't been applied to cannabis. And I think it's important.
I am curious to kind of think about how if you do have a more modular system where, yeah, you can see sort of farm to table, where did this come from, outdoor grow, etc. If that could enable, small, because I think one of the big things that even some people who love cannabis had reasons for maybe voting against. Some people who were like in the pre-legal industry felt like this is just going to become a
It's competition for my business.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like,
Yeah.
I grow a couple plants in a closet. I'm not going to be able to keep up with people who literally have industrial scale, melting it down into wax type operation. And
The licensing
in some
fees are huge.
states, they even have like limited numbers of licenses.
They do, yeah.
And I just wonder if a sort of holistic supply chain solution could actually go upstream to enable more like hobbyist producers to plug in.
Wouldn't that be good? Because that's been the big pushback in the cannabis industry. It's like initially you could have mom and pop growers and shops, and then the big guys came in and took it over. You know what I mean? And Colorado was late to give licenses, to like disenfranchised groups. They finally like got that going, where they prioritize licenses for people who had been like fucking busted for weed and in jail. You know what I mean? Been held accountable to now something that's legal, right? And so I think Colorado's very open-minded, but we've lost the cannabis thread. We're not doing anything cool there anymore. We've got psychedelics, grow your own, share with your friends, but we should be leading this. And so what is missing here in the ecosystem? Stoner governor, I don't think Pula smokes, but the next one might.
More likely he does than Michael Benner or Phil Weiser, personally.
Yeah, I don't think Wiser could die. No. Prediction market, let's put that one up there. Yeah, and so I don't know if you want to share thoughts or not. Like Patrick is someone that I just recently met in the crypto community, and we've like, I think stables are an understood thing right now because it just kind of got legal, right? Yeah. And they're still figuring out who gets the money. The banks are like, you know what I mean? Don't leave us out, and everyone else is like, that's not the point.
So when I think about it, do I understand correctly this gut check? Banks are now irrelevant, and they're trying to find a way to stay relevant.
Correct.
They're
Yeah.
fighting to stay that way.
Yeah.
I think some will make a transition into being large crypto treasuries, or
An all-in-one.
Depending on how this Clarity Act shakes out, because they're trying to. There's still going to be large corporate entities, but they want not all of the benefit of this to go to, like, say, Coinbase. They want to stay the ones who can pay yield and rewards versus some of the newer platforms that are like bank level in their ambitions.
I feel like there's a lot of stable things you can go put USDC in, and 6 to 10.
Well, that's what the banks are fighting right now, those stablecoin returns. And, Wyoming has their stablecoin that they launched. And how do you choose a stablecoin? If it's a PayPal, you want to go Circle, you want to go Tether. But if we have public benefit stablecoins, like the state of Wyoming, and their returns go to education, maybe about finance, how about that? Health, whatever they decide, I think this is a regen issue, and that's why this fits so well into what we're doing here at ETHBoulder, because let's talk about how we keep the wealth and action in our own communities for localism. And the Wyoming stablecoin just went live, 6 weeks ago or something, so we don't really know how that's shaking out. But what if it is a return to localism? And later, Patrick's giving a session about local money, basically local currencies. But these are like important things that are happening right now. Like, can local communities be as fierce advocates for getting that percentage like the banks are right now around the table in those stablecoin decisions, right? No one's advocating for a public benefit around these White House conversations. But that's why I'm so happy to be here at ETHBoulder, because there's a lot of big brains and a lot of people here who get why you should do it this way, the localism way, right? And that we can have our own public benefit from things our community values, because, man, tough times. Create your own bubble. Stick to it. I don't know. I don't know what else to do these days.
My head's been stuck on my feet since I saw this. And then you were talking about how the dispensaries don't use banks at all.
Generally
Like
speaking,
they don't keep cash somewhere in a bank, right? So they have to do their own
cash in a
management.
vault. Yeah.
Management. How does it work when you do like a debit purchase? Is basically them, like the little terminal you're using is basically an ATM, and they're just taking the cash? 'Cause
Yep.
it's not like it's going to a bank, okay? And then they're using like Venmo now.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. And they're going to pay a processing fee on that too.
Venmo, but like, yeah, it feels like
It is, but there's some issues. And I mean, we're about out of time, but it's not a perfect solution. Nothing in blockchain is a perfect solution, right? And so stables have limits. But their limits kind of fit well with cannabis, because as cannabis is regulated in supply chain, everything's interstate. So you're growing, you're producing, you're doing the lab results for the testing, you're making extracts. It's all happening within Colorado's purview. You cannot cross state lines with product or any of these other things, right? Yeah, and so that's why stablecoin, like if you're thinking about them, one, point of sale, yes, PayPal, Circle, there's universal stablecoins they could take if they just updated their POS systems, save the consumers some money. But talking about like what is the cannabis industry here in Colorado, it's a $1.6 billion cash industry. Think about it. Cash. Like, we are not like Bugsy Siegel, like running that shit, buried in the ground. But the potential there is that like there's a lot that could be done, obviously, because where there is money, there is solutions. And if we keep it localism, Colorado focused, we can do the stable coins and not kind of like what I see, and Patrick, this is what I'm actually going to ask you a question about, because the localism of stablecoins works with the cannabis industry. If you're trying, you have to stay in state with all this,
Yeah, I see. Definitely.
But if it goes interstate, that means it's been descheduled, and that means that the bank can rebank.
If they deschedule it like that,
I think it is a rescheduling. I forget what's highest, 1 or 3. What is the what's
yeah, every
1 to 2
ketamine or
is
something.
in theory what they're about to do. So it's still not going to be super bankable. I don't know.
I don't know how that works.
It's the questions in the mix, but I live on Colfax. They just opened a cannabis lounge there, right? But in the eyes of the law, that's a heroin and cocaine lounge. You know what I mean? Yeah. Cannabis is scheduled at that same. So that's why these businesses can't expand and go places. The liability is through the roof. You just invested $1 million in your business. Who's insuring you? There's like very practical business issues to think about why a stablecoin payment system could support and legitimize the cannabis industry so they can get better insurance, and because in the eyes of the law, like there is. Yes, and so this came from actually my inspiration for this was with a company that ended up, it does cannabis insurance, they do crypto insurance, but it really opened my mind to like how they think about business, right? And like what makes it more insurable? Legitimacy. They have a supply chain. They can say it all happened in Colorado. It's legit. They complied to everything. And honestly, the person I was interviewing, she brought up kind of labor issues, right? Can you guarantee that these weren't like conscripted laborers who harvested your plants? Like we can think about the human side of this too, you know what I mean? I don't want my stuff coming from a dark farm in Northern California where people are conscripted because they think they have nothing else. And so being able to insure this industry, to bank this industry, this is a discussion that's very now, and I would just like to see Colorado lead in this because it's legal in so many other places, right? But we should innovate.
Just to that point, Colorado being first, I feel like you go somewhere in a different state and the security is much more relaxed just because what they did, them not being the first mover, like they could see what was already done here.
Yes. We learned some lessons from California. Yeah.
Yeah.
But California is so bureaucratic. Well, I mean, we have an advantage here in Colorado that we're home rule, right? He's a gov guy. He gets me on this. So home rule is that really cities and counties can decide what they let in or not. And they all got to decide if they were going to legalize recreational cannabis or not.
To that end, I'm familiar with some communities on the western slope where the voters rejected countywide bans on dispensaries, but they were still passed by their city councils. So it's the unincorporated areas in the county where it's legal to have a dispensary just outside of town. Yeah, 55-45, the county rejecting a flat-out ban, the county, the city council having that power to just do it.
It is actually a cool thing about Colorado because not every state has this. We have home rule, and also in Colorado, we are a referendum state. And that's how we got recreational cannabis. That's how we got decriminalized psychedelics. And so that's why we're a good sandbox to work on these things and do this because citizens in Colorado have a lot more rights to engage and initiate things with their government than people in many other states. And I say that as a journalist. I've worked in a lot of government reporting. I'm from Indiana. Like I said, we gave you Mike Pence, Father Pence. So sorry. But we didn't have a choice there in Indiana. We're not a referendum state. We're not a home rule. We have to take the crap they give us there. And there's not enough political momentum to really have voices heard. You get overtoned. And last comment, Indiana will never legalize anything about cannabis. But to wrap it up, thank you guys for coming. This was a Unconference session that got popped up. I don't have any specific interest in actually convening this conversation, but I'm from here, and I just see so much potential, right, for Colorado to do something, and also that this can still be a people's movement, It doesn't have to come from the corporations. There's a lot of things we can do outside the government, and with this intellectual mass that we're seeing here in ETHBoulder, right, and that we've all convened together.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Researching.
Yeah, home rule's cool as fuck.
Well, everything is inside our heads. We all have this, or people have each of us individually have some vision of what the future holds, right? So banks today are clearly not irrelevant. I mean, they power. A lot of people think that they're built on obsolete technology based on what this industry is built on already. So, but I mean, in some ways, it's kind of like Zoom pre-COVID. It existed, but nobody used it.
Yeah.
But then nobody knew what came after COVID. Was it going to be like return to office? Or were we going to be just all remote working all the time?
Yeah.
Work from home? And as you can see, there's no clear winner. I mean, a lot of people now are working remotely, but a lot of people are being forced back into the office. So it's like the path of super disruptive technologies is pretty hard to predict.
I'll say specifically on the banks piece, like what's going to happen. Absolutely, who could predict? I will say there are a lot.
We can predict they're going to try to get their piece.
There are a lot of neobanks out there that are built purely on, if not just digital rails, explicitly blockchain rails. They will never open a physical bank branch ever. They will just be a relationship you have through your phone, and they run on this, but they're gonna sell you traditional banking products on these rails, and then it's up to you if you want to use their products or you want to be more of a sovereign crypto user, use some kind of community banking mechanism. I think it's gonna be just more and more open in terms of what is available. I do think that the giants feel threatened, but who knows? Some will survive, maybe not.
They feel threatened, but here is where we come to product loyalty. And so when you see the mainstreaming of this, I trust Bank of America, I trust PayPal, so I guess I'll do that. I trust Coinbase, right? So Coinbase has its banking license. You can keep all your stuff there. You don't get transfer fees. You got your crypto traditional accounts. You know what I mean? That's where it's all going to, like one platform. How will we decide on what is that one platform? And if we want to keep any principles of decentralization, that one platform is not any of those that I've seen out there right now, where I want to keep my money, where I can have the transparency and have the faith in that I'm putting into a system that I agree with. Wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't that be great?
I'll plug 130 local currencies.
We're coming over there. Thank you, everybody.
Do a wrap. Do one last wrap.
Okay, so we had our cannabis and crypto in Colorado session today at ETHBoulder. It was a pop-up discussion done with the Unconference. I want to facilitate discussion because I think we have a lot of potential to innovate here in Colorado and not lose the narrative. So if you're talking about localism, if you're talking about ETH localism, I think talking about how we do payments, how we do supply chain management in cannabis, this is a place where Colorado can innovate. And we need some innovation because we've stagnated a bit. We've stagnated in our innovation in cannabis, we've stagnated in innovation in crypto. Why not us? We've started this conversation early, and so I think this is the new convergence. And so I'm so happy that ETHBoulder and the people voted to let this session happen so we can convene this conversation.